Julie's hiding.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Amplify Science's global webinar series. We see that we have a number of attendees that are already signed on. We like to give about 5 minutes in the beginning to have other attendees sign on as well before we actually dive into the presentation. So if you just be patient with us, we'll start in another 4 minutes. Thank you.
Just while we're waiting for everyone to dial into this or log on, it'd be great if everyone in the chat could just say hi and just also where you're from, just so we can see which countries we're speaking to today. All right, Tim, I got that. Tom, I got that one already. Yeah. Oh, interesting, Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to Bangladesh.
Okay. India. Okay.
India, nice.
Nice.
Mumbai. Welcome, India. Welcome to Lebanon. Oh, we have Portugal, UK. Now we're really going global.
Okay, we'll start in just 1 more minute. Okay, it's 7:05 here on the East Coast, United States, and I think it's a good time to kick off the presentation. Welcome, everyone. We're very excited here at Amplify to present Amplify Science to a truly global audience today. I'd like to start by introducing our fellow presenters here, or my fellow presenters. We have Tom Gant there, who will be leading the presentation for the next hour or so. Tom is a product expert here at Amplify. I'm just excited to present Amplify Science. We also have Matt Drury, who is our Middle East representative. So anyone dialing in from the Middle East with any inquiries, we'll have some contact information to reach out to Matt, who's on the ground there for you. And then we have Julie Williams as well with Amplify Science. She handles a lot of our marketing and will be also able to answer some questions as we move forward. My name is Bill Radigan. I am a global account representative here at Amplify. And I'm super excited to be here and tell you all about Amplify Science. I'll at least give you an intro before Tom kicks it off. So I'd like to start by saying that Amplify Science is a leading science curriculum created in conjunction with the Lawrence Hall of Science, which is Berkeley School in California. Amplify Science is a leading science curriculum here in the United States and is now starting to have a global footprint with partners all over the world, including Southeast Asia, Middle East, especially the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Africa, Latin America, including Central and South America, as well as Europe and all over the globe. So we truly are a global and international curriculum that is ready to sort of move in to any existing or most existing curriculums around the world. What we like to do is challenge your students to think, read, and write, and argue like scientists and engineers. So it truly is a hands-on curriculum. And of course, Tom will go into the details of that as the hour progresses. Just a word about the formatting. The presentation will run about an hour. We encourage you all to post questions within the Q&A section of Zoom. If we do not get to them during the presentation, we are delighted to have a Q&A session after the presentation where we can address any questions or concerns or share contact information, et cetera, et cetera. We'll also be sending a follow-up email, which will have a certificate of attendance, as well as the recording of the presentation. And then Matt and I will follow up again to maybe start a conversation about how you may explore Amplify Science a bit further. So without any more delay, I'll turn it over to Tom, and thank you all again for joining.
Thanks, Bill, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever your time zone is. So welcome to Amplify Science. I will be walking you through the program. Sometimes I will be coming back to this whole group setup when I talk about the type of materials that come with the program. And then I will also be sharing my screen directly from my computer here. So I'm gonna start by doing that. And feel free to engage in the chat. It'll be monitored. There'll be times I'll stop and just make sure that if there's any unanswered questions in there, and then at the end, like Bill said, we'll follow up with some more questions and answers. So at this point, you should be seeing my screen, my desktop. And so we are a phenomena-based core science program. I have it listed there for kindergarten through 8th grade. We actually do have a preschool program. So if you're interested in our transitional kindergarten or preschool program, let us know. But our formal program goes K through 8. And in the United States here, we have an independent review organization called Ed Reports. And we were for our 6th through 8th grade program, we were the top rated program by that independent review, showing that we're a high quality instructional material. The K-5 results are postponed due to the pandemic, but we're expecting similar outcomes as well. And so with that, Amplify Science, we already, general housekeeping. I think at this point, everyone's really good at going online and Zooming. So I'll be going through a model overview, program overview, some lesson walkthroughs to give you an idea of how the program looks and feels in the classroom, and of course, question and answer. One thing that a lot of people have concern about is what's school going to look like, in a month or two when a lot of students, may have to report or not report to a school building. So Amplify has created, and we already have a plan in place to support our customers with remote and hybrid learning options. And so the kind of questions that we are going to ask our customers is how much time do you plan to teach science in this next school year? Do your students have technology access? Or do you need a print only? Because we have options for all of those scenarios. So it's really about the time and technology options that schools have. One thing that's not in our demo accounts or in our users account right now, but we're having built, are what's called at-home videos. So these are actual Amplify Science teachers that have at least a year or two of experience teaching our program. They are making lessons that are modified slightly for remote learning, but they're video lessons, which makes it really easy to flip your classroom to at-home learning. We'll have all units for K-5 done within a month and a half or less, and the first 4 units of our middle school program. We may have to continue with the middle school program rollout based upon what's going to be happening with the pandemic. Teachers will be able to send the at-home videos directly to students to watch, and it's really delivering the lesson as a guest teacher. Our units have chapters, and chapters have lessons. And so each of our lessons has a series of activities. So let's say I'm in a particular lesson that has 4 activities. So each individual activity will actually have a video. So you can create a playlist of the ones that you want to like do live instruction, like through a Zoom, or those that you want to have the guest teacher play. Also, one of the biggest concerns is, what about hands-on? Well, we have that covered. Any of the hands-on investigations that a student would normally do, we're creating recordings of students and maybe even teachers doing that investigation in a video, but leaving it a little open-ended so the data collection still can be done through the video process. So, you know, that's one of the things that was requested and that we are definitely adding to the program. We are also modifying some of our units for at-home use. We're calling them at-home units. The only ones that we're not doing that for are, we have engineering internship units that are 10 days of studies, 2 units per grade level in grades 6 through 8. But all the other units are going to be modified. And this is that scenario where you may have less time or technology at the home site. Our at-home units are going to have additional teacher materials to make it easy. So they'll have options to do synchronous learning in time with students in class, and maybe days that they're home. So maybe like a hybrid approach. Resources can be sent home to families. Materials are available in a couple formats. One thing we're doing is creating what's called at-home slides. So these are PowerPoints, or they could even PDFs that are student-facing. Currently, in every lesson, we are going to have, in K-5, we already have high-level PowerPoints that are called classroom slides, but those PowerPoints have a lot of teacher support notes in the margin of the PowerPoint. Well, we don't want students to see those assessment questions and those teacher actions. So we're scrubbing the PowerPoints and making them kid-friendly. So every lesson will have these at-home slides for students, and also downloadable at-home packets. So let's say a student doesn't have access to a device, they can pick up a packet for that unit, or it can be emailed or printed and given to the family, and they can still work at home. So we have pretty much every base covered on the way we can help schools through this pandemic. So with that, we do have what's called a coming soon site. I just want to jump over there really quickly, and Bill will share this out as well. We have a lot of exciting updates. Some of these were already on track. Some of them we've pushed ahead because of what we needed to do for all of our customers. The first thing you're going to see there is remote learning guidance. And then the next thing down is what's called classroom slides. I mentioned those. Those have been used for over a year and a half in K-5, where they were already being added for 6-8. So every lesson will have those, but not just classroom slides. We also have it in Spanish. So that comes in handy in some places, but Google Classroom slides. That was one of our requests, is that we can integrate more with Google. And so we will have those slides available in Google format. Also, we're creating, we have Spanish simulations. Any of our simulations have Spanish translations. Our administrator reports is some new feature that is available for our grades 6 through 8. So administrators can run usage reports, how students are logging in. And this can be really important if there's a lot of remote learning, because then you could track how students are actually progressing through the curriculum. Read aloud books for K-5. So 6-8, we've always had read aloud science articles where you press speaker and it reads the text to the students. We are now completing that project for K-5 as well. So a lot of really great things happening in the next couple months to really push forward the technology and the approach of our program. So with that, I'm going to talk about phenomenon. Phenomenon is a really important aspect now in the way that we wanted to address and teach science. And really, it's something that we can question, something that can drive investigation. And so with that, I want to show you how topics and phenomena vary. You know, traditionally, science teachers, and I taught for 15 years, we were teaching topics, such as sound waves, sea turtles, energy conversions. But now we want to really integrate what's called a three-dimensional approach to learning. And so to make it much more exciting, I can say dolphins communicate underwater, still sound waves. All about sea turtles. Well, sea turtles are going to survive in a place where there's sharks. How is that possible? That sounds a lot better than just learning about turtles. A town that has frequent blackouts, that's obviously an energy problem. And so this phenomenon becomes very important. It becomes meaningful to students, community, and the world at large, as you will see. So with Amplify Science, we are unit-based, and every unit, students will explore this problem-based deep dive. So instead of just being Tom science student taking some notes and maybe doing some labs, I get to be an engineer or a scientist of some kind and explore this really cool, phenomenal problem. In the aspect, I learn how science and engineers really work. I get career kind of exposure to some really exciting things. So with that, an example from grade 3, civil engineers. How cool is that? I get to be a civil engineer in this unit, and I'm investigating floating trains. Now, I do not live in a city where we have any magnetic levitation trains, but I know that they're very common in certain places, and they're becoming more common in the States. And so they have to explain how this train works so people feel comfortable riding this new technology. An example from grade 4, I mentioned the dolphin teaching sound waves. Well, that's our unit in grade 4. Waves, energy, and information. How does the mother dolphin communicate to the calf dolphin when they're separated underwater? And so it's all about sound waves. Grade 5, an example, I'm an astronomer. I get to actually be like Indiana Jones. I have an artifact that's kind of like the size of a bagel, and I have to figure out what's missing. There's a missing piece, and I have to figure out that pattern based upon the constellations and the seasons. With that, we do have some really cool digital applications that I'm going to start talking about now. We believe, and research shows, that a gradual increase in student-facing content is the way to go. So in K1, you have a lot of print and hands-on materials, and you also do get the readers that are digitized. So the student books that come in print are also accessible digitally. The cool thing about that, as I mentioned, is that we're going to have a read aloud feature added as I speak in the next month to these texts. So a student could press play, it will be read to them, and they can even slow it down or speed it up. It'll have 3 speed settings, and it's not a computer generated voice, it's an actual actor reading the text. In grades 2 to 3, we start bringing in what's called practice tools. And science practice tools are another way students can demonstrate their understanding and visualize things. So of course, we're going to have them draw things and write it out, but we also want them to show with these technology tools how things work. So they're going to build digital models and sort items digitally in grades 2 through 3. In grades 4 and 5, we still have those books and those practice tools, but we're now introduced what's called simulations. And simulations allow students to uncover evidence around the core phenomenon to figure out things out. Keep in mind, I have their readers will have read aloud feature for both English and Spanish text. At this point, I'm going to go into some of that digital content. So I have logged in over here in my account, and I've already opened what's called the student apps page. So this has all the units for K5. Keep in mind, you would have, if you had used our program, your students would access just the several units that they are supposed to study, as well as the teacher. But I'm going to scroll past, because it starts with kindergarten. I'm going to go a little further down, and this one right here with this predator-prey happening, vision and light. So vision and light has assimilation, has practice tools, and student books in English and Spanish. And so this is the student-facing digital component. It gets more advanced in middle school, and I'll show you the difference in a second. So here is assimilation for vision and light. So vision and light, the students are actually these ecologists, and they're trying to figure out why this tokay gecko population is having a hard time. Is it because street lights have been put up in the neighborhood? Are they not able to avoid the predators and find their prey? And so here I could hit play on this simulation, and the light waves have to bounce off the prey, make its way to the eyeball, and to look and form an image, and its mouth even opened over here. I can change the pupil size at the bottom. If I do that, it makes it too blurry. I don't want too much light entering my eye. I can change the angle of the light. I can change the amount of light. So students are going to be able to collect some really interesting information. Over here, there's other settings about recognizing prey, because there's different types of things they can eat. Some might be toxic, and then also avoiding different predators, because not only do they have to hunt, but they also have to stay safe. And so students are going to manipulate this environment with different tasks throughout the program to collect some evidence. So that's what assimilation looks like. Now let's look at what a practice tool would look like. I'm going to go to Open Box. So in Open Box, students will have already completed a hands-on investigation where they're trying to see if they can see an object with a light on or off reflected out of a box. So here they now have to demonstrate what they practiced. So I'm going to drag these light arrows, and they go into the box. Now some have to bounce out of the box to the eyeball, It says light carries information about the object, and then now I can see that eraser. So they're taking what they learned and showing their understanding with a digital model. And then once again, we have those student books that are digitized flip books, but we're enhancing those with that additional technology of Read Aloud. I'm now going to go into middle school. So this is one of our life science units, traits and inheritance. Students actually get to breed these Darwin bark spiders. The cool thing about this is that there's real research happening, and they meet the researcher in her lab that is trying to come up with a spider silk that can replace a torn tendon in the human body. And so they get to breed these spiders with a purpose. And so here, and they're going to learn all about Punnett squares and traits and inheritance. So Greg and Zora, I'm going to hit create reproductive cells. Keep in mind, students are assigned scaffolded tasks to learn the technology, and they're eventually then turned free to explore the questions that are addressed. So they will work through assimilation multiple times. Here I can mutate, and trust me, your students will play around, over mutate these. Some of the spiders will come out in different colors or even dead, but I'm just going to do randomly fertilize here, and I'm going to see what my offspring look like. Keep in mind, I'm going to have a purpose trying to figure out the best spider silk traits. So here they all look like the female parent, but if I click on this trait, silk flexibility at the top, I see that Greg is low and Zora is high. And all my offspring are low and then one of them's medium. That's great. If that's my outcome that I wanted. If it's not, I got to go back, rethink, talk to my team, and rebreed my spiders. By about the third chapter, we're going to have students explore the cellular level. So if I click on any spider, I can see this is the cell with ribosomes pumping out these pink proteins. The visualization allows students to see things they normally wouldn't be able to see. If I click a different trait at the top, if I go to stickiness, you can see what happens to the protein shape. I'm going to click on another one, venom. So students who may not quite get the concept right away can definitely make a connection that difference in the protein is responsible for the difference I see in the living spider. So you can see the depth that we go in. Another one I'm going to show you, just because it's a physical science, is chemical reactions. I worked at a school where I did not have the safety equipment to have a full chemistry lab. But here, you get a full chemistry lab. Students are going to be chemists in this unit. They have to figure out why the tap water in their community is coming out this brown color. And so here, I'm going to add some methane. And over here, I'm going to add some oxygen. The container shapes hold the gas. I hit test over here. And what I love about this, it goes deep into the atomic level, and you can see the actual molecules bouncing around and reforming. So I can visualize it, and then I hit results. My lab is going to identify the results. And notice this is now a beaker because it's not a gas. It has water in it and carbon dioxide. If I review that process, I can turn on the atomic scale and properties. I can see I had methane and oxygen, and then I have my products over here, carbon dioxide and water. There's a full stockroom and other chemical settings that students will work through. So some really exciting technology. I'll come back to this metabolism one in a little bit. So by the time they're in 6th through 8th grade, our entire program can reside digitally, and students can even take assessments online in grades 6 through 8 and explore these really cool roles. This is just a sample of them, anything from climate scientists to microbiome researchers. One of the favorites is medical school interns, where they get to have this anchoring phenomenon to have to diagnose a patient as a medical doctor. They have to figure out why she's chronically exhausted. And so with that, why are people choosing Amplify Science? Well, we are transforming the way science is taught and learned. And the first thing that you saw there is that we're phenomena-based, and we use 21st century tools and resources. Scientists work a lot different than they did 20 years ago, and we want our students to understand that. We're also a brand new program. We're designed for this three-dimensional learning. In the United States, we call them the next generation science standards. The three-dimensional learning is sweeping across the globe because it's the new approach in the way that we want students to learn science. And then finally, effective teaching, planning, and assessment tools. With our new resources, the program gets even easier to teach than it was 2 years ago. We have these classroom slides that's basically download a lesson plan. You're ready to go in 5 minutes. You pull materials out of our kits. Our assessments are scaffolded and built right in at point of use, so it makes instruction really easy. But finally, Science is a new language for a lot of students. And so we have worked with reading and literacy experts as well for an integrated science approach. We've had some districts or schools, the only thing they changed was their science program to Amplify, and their reading and their writing scores went up as well. So you will see those embedded supports. Our authorship team, as Bill mentioned, is the Lawrence Hall of Science out of UC Berkeley. They have been making research and qualified materials for over 60 years in science. And so Amplify was created because this new step forward with our new standards and the three-dimensional way of learning. And so with that, with Amplify, students figure out, not learn about. Instead of the teacher always giving the instructions, students have this natural curiosity that is fostered to be the one driving the questions. And so with that, I want to talk about how we're designed for that instructional shift in science education, to where we have this three-dimensional approach that is woven through every unit, chapter, and lesson. And you may be out there thinking, I don't even know what a three-dimensional approach is. No problem. We have got you covered. So our experts at LHS take a blend of these parts of the three-dimensional learning. We have what's called the core ideas. This is what we want students to know. Things such as, the water cycle, the kind of the facts, whether it's life, earth, or physical science, or engineering. Then we have science and engineering practices, 8 action items, such as scientific argumentation, exploring with investigations, doing mathematical analysis. Then we blend in cross-cutting concepts. How do students actually make connections between these different core ideas, such as recognizing patterns? Well, we bring it all together with an anchoring phenomenon that's the storyline that drives students' curiosity and makes it all come to life. So this is an example from our teacher guide on what we call a three-dimensional statement. This is from our balancing forces unit, which is the one with the floating trains. So students are challenged to explain how a floating train works in order to reassure nervous citizens. That's my phenomenon. To solve the mystery, students plan and conduct investigations, analyze patterns and data. So anything you see in blue, that's my science and engineering practice. And then green is my cross-cutting concept. They're gonna learn a lot about patterns. Patterns in the way magnets attract things, patterns in the way things move. The core idea is magnetic force, gravity, balanced and unbalanced forces. And you can see the rest there, how we bring these all together. So at the unit level, they're pretty long. Chapter level, they're a little shorter. And the lesson level, they're even a little shorter there. And some teachers like that because they can see exactly how they're meeting all 3 parts of the new learning, of three-dimensional learning. Now let's talk about the program components. What are the resources that you're going to be using? So the elementary curriculum in grades K through 5, we have set up the unit approach as you see here. Keep in mind, this is our recommended unit approach, but you can move these units around. For instance, I live in Miami, Florida. We have hurricanes, so we usually push weather to the first unit just because of hurricane season. So they are flexible. Every unit in elementary school has 22 lessons. So if I'm a grade 1 teacher, that means I have 66 lessons to get through and still cover all the curriculum. Grades 3, 4, 5 brings me a total of 88. By the time we get to middle school, we have a lot of options. The way that the standards are written, we can move units up or down. We can put them all life science, earth science, and physical science in different grades, so we can customize it for you. This is just an integrated example of what a lot of schools do. You're going to see we recommend starting with a launch unit. Our launch units are very exciting. So when I used to teach, the first chapter of the textbook was the whole thing about the scientific method. Well, that's gone. We now teach those routines and practices in our launch unit. And in the launch unit, students will also work through what we call a scientific argumentation wall that the teacher will build with our resources. And that wall allows students to make evidence claims throughout the other units. Then following, you'll see right below, so if I launch with microbiome, I follow that up with metabolism. And that's what we call the core unit. And then twice a year, we go into these engineering internships. And we recommend that they follow one of our core units, like you see here, metabolism. And those are 10 days of true engineering practices. And students will actually get a request for proposal from our Futura Engineering Corporation. They have a budget and they have constraints that are real world. So if I'm looking at this metabolism internship, students are tasked with designing a nutrition bar, like a Cliff granola bar or something like that, that can feed people in an area that went through natural disasters. So if I jump over, I'm going to go to my Futura workspace, and I can see here's my agendas, and we even changed the vocabulary. Instead of homework, we call it after hours work. They're going to read a dossier like a true engineer. And as they research ingredients over the course of days, they're going to analyze the ingredients. They're going to just start designing their actual bars. We have a digital tool with all of our internships. So I'm going to open this one up. It's called the recipe test. Students have to collect data on what's the most effective blend of these different ingredients. Everything has a price too. So I like chocolate, so I'm just gonna go right into the chocolate. And every time I click, I put more grams in there. So I'm gonna put over 61 grams of chocolate. I'm gonna add some raisins. Let's change that up a little bit. Let me put in some prunes, some fiber, some soy for protein. And now I have my bar. I can see my ingredients, my taste score, 8.5 out of 10. For my $10,000, I'm helping this many servings. I have different populations to send it to. I'm gonna send it to the patients with normal oxygen levels. I hit send to the lab, and now I start collecting my data. I did not do very well in my growth and repair test. I need more protein, but I did well in my energy, pretty well. So I need to go back to my recipe, work with my team to come up with an optimal design that balances all those criteria. So our engineering internships are very robust and very exciting for students to really take on that real learning approach. The components that help meet these new ways of teaching. We have a digital and print teacher guide. So if you like to work in print or digital, we have you covered. Hands-on materials. Our material kits, so if you are a K-5 teacher, our material kits are designed for a class size of 36 students. And you can go for over 2 years without having to buy any components to refill it, which is great. And most of the components to refill it are things that you can source locally. You do not have to order the refill kits from Amplify. In middle school, so if you're grades 6, 7, and 8, our kits service 40 students with up to 5 uses a day. So you're talking 200 students a day in middle school. Student books, so in K-5, you're gonna get enough copies of student books to do a partnered reading approach with those 36 students. All the books come in a nice to use bin that makes it really easy. Then we have options for our student notebooks. The student notebooks are write-in consumable investigation notebooks where they're going to collect data, they're going to reflect on their reading, and of course they're age appropriate. So if I'm a kinder or first grade teacher, I'm actually going to have students do a lot more drawing and less writing as they develop their writing skills. By the time we get to middle school, you could forego the print investigation notebook and all their work can be submitted online. And we now also have a Google Classroom integration where a teacher can assign each activity into Google Classroom. So we have a full approach here that works together. In middle school, instead of reading the student books, they graduate to what's called articles. These articles are embedded in the digital platform. If you're going a print way, they will be embedded in the student notebook in middle school. And so with that, before I jump to assessments, I'm going to stop sharing so you can see my setup here that goes through and kind of gives you an idea of what materials look like. One thing I didn't mention is if you look back over here, I have my unit question, chapter questions. This all came out of my kit. I did not have to print that out. It's already pre-printed for you, and it's on heavy cardstock. Some teachers laminate it, but you don't have to. It's very durable. But let's say, oops, I misplaced my vocabulary card. In the teacher guide digitally, you can reprint any of this. All these resources are print on demand as well. So in this particular grade 3, this is a typical size of an elementary school bin. This is a grade 3 balancing forces. These student readers, there's 5 different copies at this grade level. I mean, every unit has 5 copies, 5 unique titles with all the multiple copies, and it fits nicely right here in this middle section. An investigation notebook, we provide a master copy for the teacher, and then you would order the ones you need for your students. And once again, it has all these great graphic organizers, data collection, self-reflection, reading prompts as they work. Any other print resources are also included in our kits. So we provide sorting activities. So I have stacks of cards here that are already pre-printed for me. Maybe visual vocabulary in the lower grade levels, that's pre-printed for you. So we have all these great resources. And then of course the hands-on manipulatives are also in the kit makes for a very easy setup. One thing that's unique, if you are a kinder or first grade teacher, these same titles, you'll get additional copy of every one of them for you. That's really, really big, the mega flip book. So you can do model reading instruction on a carpet, and do those kind of different activities that the lower grade students really appreciate. So these are all of our resources that you will get one kit. This half-size kit here is from our metabolism kit, which is a little shorter. It's one of our middle school kits, because in middle school, once again, they're not going to be reading these readers. They're going to get scientific articles that are embedded either in the notebook, if you go that way, or they're online for them to read embedded in our lessons. So that kind of gives you an idea of some of these great resources that you have when you order our program. So at this point, if there's any questions about the materials, feel free to put it in the chat. Bill is an expert on what comes in our program, and we can also provide material list of what's in every kit as well. So you can kind of see the kind of things that you're going to be getting in the program. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And so with that, assessments. So how do we assess the progress of our students? Well, we start with a pre-unit assessment, and then we go through what's called a critical juncture assessment. Those are key checkpoints that we really want to make sure students are being successful before we let them move forward. We also provide a lot of tailored instruction notes to differentiate for students who might be struggling, as well as those who might be excelling. At the end of the unit, we have a post-unit assessment. We also have these amazing embedded formative assessments called on-the-fly assessments. These provide exactly what the teacher's looking for, and then now what? So how do I adjust instruction if my kids are not getting what they need? And so we provide these embedded at places that we know research has showed us, and our field testing showed that students might struggle. We have end of chapter assessments, self-assessments, end of unit written tasks. We have assessment guides and rubrics that provide also student answers, so you can see what a model student might write. We also have standard-based benchmarking. So these mimic what we call our high stakes test, or we want to just do major checkpoints after the end of a unit or a series of units. We provide these both in print and digital formats. In print, you can see it here, we have visual stimuli with multiple choice questions, data analysis. We work through different types of scenarios. If this were a technology-driven question, you could actually drag and drop these answers. This is the teacher key, as you see here, DOK level. My depth of knowledge levels are 2s or 3s. Level 1 questions, like memorization kind of stuff, we don't ask that because we find that doesn't challenge the student. And so we have a lot of great assessment opportunities. I mentioned before, our classroom slides. These are our downloadable PowerPoints or Google Slides. They're going to be available for 6-8 very soon. We recommend that teachers download them, because once they're downloaded, all your videos, everything is there for you to teach the lesson. And then if your internet goes down, no worry, you have your classroom slides to teach. Fully editable too, so you can customize them, add more things, streamline them however you want. They've been used successfully for the past year in K-5, and we're adding back to school, 6-8, and then also Spanish for back to school. So the learning approach at Amplify is a little different. We want students to figure out, not learn about. So you do the pre-unit assessment, then you introduce this real world problem. Students are going to collect evidence in different ways. So we want them to do that so they can scaffold their learning. Oh, my PowerPoint stuck there. Give me 1 second. You jump down to here and start again. And so we want to build their knowledge. And so what I like about this program is that you're going to be able to start students at a very accessible entry point. We call this a progress build. So we start simple. We don't want to scare the students away from science. And so here, progress build level 1 for balancing forces about our trains is that students just need to learn a force is a push or pull that acts between 2 different objects. We can master that. Kids can push things around. We're going to do manipulatives. Then we're going to take a critical juncture assessment. We're going to move up the ladder. Progress build 2. Forces can be touching or non-touching. We now have gravity and magnets and work through those forces. So they start understanding how those things work. Now we move up to level 3. But keep in mind, we're always coming back to our floating train phenomenon and adjusting what we have preliminary thought. Level 3, more than one force can act on the object at the same time. When those forces are balanced, the object doesn't move. when they're unbalanced, it starts to move, and that explains the motion of this train. And so we have deliberately built in every unit this kind of progress, and our assessments are tied to that to make sure kids are moving up that knowledge ladder. The way in which the standards, the science and engineering practices are written, it requires a different approach. So we have times where we do what's called a do. That's hands-on manipulatives and learning. Then talk. I don't know about you, but my students love to talk, and they like to talk about anything but science, right? They want to talk about lunch or recess or physical education. And so here we get them to talk science with over 8 different discourse routines that are embedded in the program, such as think, pair, share, word circles, to get them using science vocabulary in a higher frequency. Also, they're going to look at the vocabulary on the wall when they have these discussions. Then we're going to have them read. In K-5, they're going to read from one of the readers. In 6-8, they're going to read from one of the articles. Before I go into write and visualize, I want to show you what an article looks like in our digital format for grades 6 through 8. So I'm going to jump back over here. I've already opened up in my Amplify library this article about anemia. This is from our metabolism unit where they're diagnosing a patient. They're going to learn about body systems and things that might go wrong with them. Up here, I have the ability to hit play, and an actor's voice will read this to the student. Oh, my internet is rebooting. Then you also have the options to annotate digitally. You can see here, I've already done a lot of highlighting. So let me drag over this. I can highlight. Students will have individual accounts. So this is saved in their account. I can also add my annotations. See, I have a lot of notes over here. Maybe I want to write about this. I add another note. They're always going to read with active reading strategies. A lot of times it may be modeled by the teacher. Other times they'll work with other students on their active reading, and sometimes alone. We want them to be able to become independent in that process. You'll see great visuals as well. Any academic words that are a little more challenging, I can click on. I get a bilingual English and Spanish definition, and then it has a little check mark that I've checked it. Over here, I can manipulate this page, I can search it, I can bookmark it. Up here on the right, I can see all my annotations and revealed words. Once the student has made the required amount of annotations and markings, they'll hit hand in the platform in the lesson, and then the teacher can score those through the digital platform. If you're working in print, our print versions that are in the notebooks actually have enough space, extra space in the margins for these kinds of annotations as well. So active reading can be digital or in print. So they're going to do talk read. Now we're going to have them write. So in K-5, they're going to write in their notebooks. In 6-8, they can either write in the notebooks or submit those writings with the same information digitally online. They're going to visualize. We have multimedia apps, interactive simulations, a lot of great tools for them to visualize at a different level. The 5E framework has been around for quite a while, and it's the foundation of science instruction. And so here, Lawrence Hall wanted to go deeper in that part where we want them to really construct explanations. And by doing that, we hit a lot of different modalities and learning styles because our lessons vary, but we also keep engagement high because they're always coming back to that really cool phenomenon. Now, evaluate. Evaluate looks a little different in Amplify. It actually is an improvement on not just giving an assessment, but really challenging the students to take what they learned and solve a new problem. So with that, let's say, oh, we figure out the train. We've mastered that, we've explained it to the citizens. Let's go to the depth of knowledge, the highest level, level 4, and really take that and apply it. So here, they're still civil engineers, but now I want you to design a blueprint of a bridge that shows the forces are balanced. If they can do that, they mastered the core part of the unit. It's a great performance task. Now, in my example, they diagnose Elisa, they figure out her condition. Now, in middle school, we have this additional phenomenon. Let's figure out how this athlete, Jordan Jones, went from 35th place in the world in cycling. In 1 year, he's in first. How did that happen? So they're going to actually, in grades 6 through 8, at the last chapter of the unit, they get this new application phenomenon, and they're going to present their findings in what we call a Socratic science seminar. You'll take one day to do this. It's amazing. They're going to already research evidence on this athlete. They're going to see if maybe he did something illegal like blood doping, or did he go to the mountains and train to get high elevation training, which is perfectly fine and works. Did he change his diet? The students will then have this scientific discourse and argumentation facilitated by the teacher And it's amazing to see how much they can share and that they learn with their claimed evidence and reasoning. And so our learning approach really goes to engaging them with the real world problem, exploring that evidence by do, talking, read, write, and visualize until students can really solve their own problems in science. This approach is proven effective. So in the states here, each state does different types of assessments. In Nebraska, one of our districts shared with us, after implementing our program in 1 year, their special ed students reduced the learning gap from their on-level peers by almost 7%. English learners, primarily Spanish speakers, reduced that learning gap by 13%, and our free and reduced meal students reduced it by almost 6% in 1 year on that state assessment. So we're getting great results from users all across the states and the world. So I'm going to go into some model lessons. At this time, Bill, are there any questions in the chat that need me to answer them, or you're good?
Hey, Tom, thanks. No questions just yet, but we certainly continue any attendee. We actually ask them to promote any questions that they may have for the chat. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, I'll continue on. So now let's go into what a model lesson looks like. So what you're seeing now is the actual classroom slide, the PowerPoint that I've downloaded for lesson 1.2. I'm not going to talk about lesson 1.1. All of our lesson 1.1s are an assessment. I don't want to give you a test today. So here we go into what I call this. This is when you go into PowerPoint, you can do what's called a presenter view. You can see here, when a teacher presents this, the students would see the left slide on the screen. A teacher sees what's coming next. And here's all my notes that are in the margin for me to teach. You can see on this slide, there's a video embedded and the teacher actions. Play the video, point out when the train floats and falls. So it makes it really clear for instruction. Also, you're going to see in our program, we have what's called suggested teacher talk. By all means, you can use it or make it your own. I taught long enough that I would probably tweak it and put my own flair on it. But maybe you have new teachers or teachers that are teaching science for the first time in this way. They may rely on this teacher talk as a great resource. So here's the beginning of the lesson without that view. And students are going to kick it off by discussing initial ideas. Remember, this is the first time we're introducing this phenomenon. And so here, they have an embedded video in the PowerPoint. And the video actually has narration. So there's someone speaking, but it also has these slides on the screen that lets the students know what's happening. And so this train is coming to Faraday. They're excited about this train until they heard something about it. It floats. Dum dum, kind of a mystery, right? They're not sure for what that means. And so here, students are going to watch the process of how this magnetic levitation train moves throughout this town, this city, and how the mayor needs their help. After they watch the video, the teacher's going to introduce this scientific role and how we investigate things that move, float, and fall. Then one of our routines is introduced, think, pair, share. Their students have to think about the question, partner and talk about it, and then share it out to the class. And so they're going to go through a series of questions. We're probing for what they might know, what initial concepts they understand. What makes the train rise up? Students are going to have a lot of ideas. Some are going to say, oh, it looks like the monorail at Disney World. Others are going to say helium or Harry Potter made it move. And those are okay because we're going to investigate all those claims. What keeps the train floating? Now we're going through the process of it coming back down. Students might have some experience with gravity. A lot of kids have tripped and fall before. And so here's my unit question. And this has little tape marks on it, which lets the teacher know, okay, make sure that's up on the wall. What can make an object move or not move? We're going to focus in the first chapter just on that rise of the train. And so now we're focusing on, remember, progress build 1 was recognizing that forces move things. So we're going to make some blocks move. And so we're going to investigate what makes an object start to move to begin with. And so here we have an embedded video with the teacher giving the instructions about making the blocks move and the kind of resources they're going to use. It does have audio, but for feedback purposes, I'm not going to turn that up. But she's talking about how to make these block moves and the safety requirements to keep it on the floor or desk. And then we're going to go into the resources that we have to collect. Now we're going to talk about how we observe and how we use our 5 senses. The teacher's going to point out, we don't want to taste the materials. No way we're going to chew on those blocks. But here's the resources I pulled out of my kit. I've already put it in the bags. So each group of students of either 2 to 4 students can work through this process. And what I love about our PowerPoints is that you see the actual image from the notebook. So here it shows, okay, you're going to collect this information. This is the page you need to collect it on and how we're going to do that. Students investigate, they fill in that part in their notebook. And then we want, once again, to share out. Discussion is so important in the way the standards address three-dimensional learning. And we create an anchor chart for the classroom. What objects were used, what we observed, and whether it was a push-pull or not sure. If they're not sure, that's okay. Once again, we don't want to give them the answers. We want to help them struggle a little bit to find the answer, because then it's going to make a deeper contextual meaning to them. We're going to always come back to the train, but now I'm jumping ahead to the next lesson to show you how this one is a much more literacy-driven, rich lesson. So here, students are going to look at evidence of forces in this book. So this is the actual text they can pull out, or they can pull up on their computer if they have devices. We have enough copies, once again, to do a partnered approach for 36 kids. They're going to read looking for forces, and even in grade 3, we're teaching some basic annotation skills. When they see evidence, mark it with a sticky note, because later on, they're going to have to write that evidence into their notebook. And you're going to see words like forces, objects, and evidence bolded in the text. Those new words are repeated frequently. So there's about 11 new academic words through each unit, and those, one of the scaffolds is to have them repeat them throughout the text and their discourse. Here on this page, they look at the spread, they point out the skateboard, the slide, and we let them know that they can put more than one sticky note to mark this text. So they're going to work through this process of reading for evidence as well as doing hands-on investigations. By lesson 4, they can come to explaining the train. Before I go any further, I just want to jump really quickly over to our curriculum from a teacher perspective. So one thing in your demo account, you're going to be able to toggle to whichever grade level resource you want. So let's say I want to stay in life science here. Keep in mind, Earth, Life, and Physical are our middle school units, separated by domain, and here they are in integrated approach, but we're totally flexible on where we place those units in those grade levels. I'm going to go into this metabolism lessons, and if I want to see what a print teacher guide might look like, I can download this PDF to get a good view of it, but all the resources are right here. So here's my chapters. I'm going from cells to systems to finally energy release, and then there's my athletic performance with that possibly cheating athlete. And then here, planning for the unit. This is all the front matter in our print teacher guide. It's broken down by documents. So the unit overview is a great place to go to kind of see what the unit's about. And then maybe I want to know more about that progress build. Well, this tells me exactly, also with some preconceptions that students might have, how I'm going to scaffold throughout the instruction. Materials and prep, this tells me exactly what's in my kit. We provide a lot of great resources and what is also being used. And if there's any items that a teacher needs to provide. The items that we recommend teachers provide are things that would be classroom supplies, such as scissors, glue, paper, that kind of stuff. Science background, great document in case you're new to teaching this concept or just need a refresher. But we also include pedagogical considerations that students might have. Standards at a glance, just the numerical standards that speak to math, literacy, and science, of course. A little further down, the teacher references is the back matter in our teacher guide. All the stuff that would be in the middle, but sandwiched between these, are these chapter resources here. So you can see we have three-dimensional statements, our full standards and goals spelled out, our assessments that are embedded throughout, and you can explore those options. Over here on the right, all of our print backup materials, and those can be used in a lot of different ways. Keep in mind, we're adding additional resources, like I mentioned, that coming soon stuff that will be added in the platform. I'm going to just go ahead and jump into a lesson just to show you. Here's a lesson 2.2. Let's say we're working through this lesson. This lesson has a warm-up activity, a reading activity embedded, discussion with the annotations, and some homework. Over here, each lesson has a series of additional things that you could download. We're going to have the PowerPoint right here. It's already there in our K-5 units. But maybe I want to look about how to prepare for this lesson. Well, I just go right down here. It tells me what vocabulary cards to have ready, what copies I need if I'm doing print. If they're doing digital, it's all right here as well. Differentiation. Students all come in with a different level of learning. And so here we have every lesson has an embedded support for diverse learners, any challenges in the lesson, specific strategy for EL students, English learners, which some of these strategies are great for other kids that might need supports, students who need more support in general, but then also those who need more challenge, your honor students, your academic students who excel. We provide opportunities for them with every lesson as well. So you can really divide your class up in effective ways for differentiation. So that kind of gives you a quick layout of our resources. I'm going to hit escape at this point and jump a little further ahead. I'm going to come down here and talk about how we do successful implementation. How do we get you trained? Well, obviously in-person workshops are off the table right now, even in the States. So we're doing a ton of virtual professional development that goes with our program to teach how to use the program, how to customize it, a lot of great resources. But we're also embedding professional development videos into the teacher platform. So that's something that's being added as we speak. There will be a new icon to the teacher platform that allows a teacher to go in, see embedded videos of instruction and from our professional development team. So it'd be a point of use as well. So you'll get maybe a virtual training, but also you'll have resources online. And we do have a live chat button built into the program as well. Schools will transform. I trained 100 teachers in the state of Louisiana at one district, went back 4 weeks later for follow-up professional development. And this unit here had where students study chalta trees and why they're not expanding in the Bengal Tiger Reserve. Grade 2, she converted her classroom into a Bengal Tiger Reserve. Here's our unit questions being worked. Amplify wall on the wall. Mad scientist here, but using all of our resources in a very creative way. Students will grow plants. They will use solar panels. They will build these creatures to withstand predators in grades 2. They'll also do energy conversions, like I said, with solar panels and really some really great hands-on resources. So with that, why choose us? Well, we're a phenomena-based approach. We think and work like real scientists, designed for three-dimensional learning, great teacher planning and assessment tools, and we have literacy and readings embedded in the program to really drive home the work of reading informational text in a scientific way. And so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we can have a few minutes of Q&A if there are any.
Thank you, Tom. Great presentation, as always. And yes, we certainly encourage our attendees to ask any questions, make any comments. We'd love to provide any specific information that you may be wanting. In the meantime, I'm going to post some important information here in the chat. I'm going to post my contact information as well as Matt Drury's. And also I'm going to share a link to a jump drive, or a shared drive rather, where you'll be able to find more resources on Amplify Science, kind of backing up the presentation that you just saw. And a word about follow-ups. You will be receiving a follow-up to this presentation, which will include a recording of the presentation as well as, again, a certificate of attendance. After that, Matt and I will be reaching out to you individually, and we hope to get you set up with a demo account if indeed you'd like to take that step. That demo account provides full access to Amplify Science, kindergarten through 8th grade. You'll be able to really dive in, experience the program from a teacher perspective as well as a student perspective. And we find that that really provides a wonderful sort of learning, onboarding environment for teachers and administrators who may be interested in pursuing Amplify Science. We have a plethora of resources available to you, so we'll be reaching out to you, and certainly don't hesitate to reach out to us as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and post some information here in the chat.
We've got a raised hand, Bill, from Yelda in the chat. I don't know, Yelda, if you want to type up what your question is. Maybe not.
So we can either use the Q&A tab there in Zoom for asking questions, or just post it directly into the chat, either way. I wish I can just call on you with a raised hand, but it's a little difficult with Zoom.
Yelda's gone. Yeah, we lost him.
Oh, Yelda's gone. Okay.
Yeah, Yelda's gone.
Okay. Well, all right. So thanks everyone again for joining. Really appreciate it. And again, just want to reemphasize that we're ready and willing to answer any questions that you may have, and excited to hear from you. Fantastic. Thanks for the comment there. That's great. I do just want to say a word or two about how Amplify Science is configured, or some options that you may have when ordering and implementing Amplify Science. Oftentimes, for our global partners, we end up shipping the two main components, or rather we have a digital component and the kit component. The kits Tom went through are available from K through 8 per unit. And then we have the student licenses that are available in middle school and teacher licenses that are available for elementary school. These are the two core components of Amplify Science that are essential to the curriculum. The print material is optional, but of course we do encourage you to order the print material as well. The print material includes a printed out teacher's guide, a printed out student notebook as well. I will say that with your digital license, both of these assets are available for download as well. So just want to throw that out there.
Well, thanks everyone for attending. Great to see you guys remotely around the world. It's amazing. I love technology when it's working like today.
Yeah, definitely. No problem today. Well, thanks again. We still have 15 folks on the line, still hoping to get some questions. If not, that's great. You see I'd like to point out that we have our contact information there in the chat as well. So feel free to reach out at any time and look out for the follow-ups. So.
Yeah, I think we're done.
There was one Q&A that just came in. As a science teacher, a STEM teacher and coordinator, I am interested to have a general overview of the content. Does your curriculum include robotics? We do have a couple units in engineering where students do some robotic design. We have one unit in elementary school where they work as biomimicry engineers, and they look at cockroach robots, which are used to go in areas that maybe have an earthquake or collapsed structure. And they do some engineering around what we call a robo-grazer, where they have to design a machine that's based upon a giraffe's features to eat invasive plants. So we do have those things included, but we also have resources that we could send in our program that allow STEAM extensions. So for all those lessons, we can provide that STEAM extension piece. So it provides a lot of opportunities to expand beyond the core part of our program as well.
Great, thank you, Tom, and thank you for the question. Okay, I think we're going to settle up and close out the presentation now. I want to thank everyone again for joining, thank our presenters and everyone on the Amplify team as well. So look out for those follow-ups. We look forward to sending them, and also certainly look forward to hearing from you soon. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye everyone, have a wonderful day or evening.